Hey everybody, it's a Mad Master, also known as Mad Warrior, here doing a review that's a little bit late, and I did actually buy this album, Danzig Sings Elvis. And for those of you that have probably seen my Danzig is Done video, in the follow-up video, I'm not trying to contradict what I said in that video or anything, because I still think Danzig needs a new producer and to get a little more perspective on things and stuff like that. Now that said, I actually just listened to this for the first time. I know it's a little bit late, this review, and honestly, it's not half bad. Um, I think I understand what Glenn was going for with this album, and that is basically a stripped down, dark, stark kind of feel to these songs. And I think Danzig is actually working in this realm a little better than his metal stuff, these nowadays. So I kind of enjoyed it more than probably the last two albums, as well. Well, the last two studio albums and the covers album that he did before of called Skeletons. Now, a lot of the bad things about modern Danzig are still there, like him trying to do everything himself and mix it himself, or actually did he mix it? I think he tried, or produced it at least. Where he puts his vocals in the front of the mix, and you can not hardly hear it if you turn it up, but you can't hear the instruments as well, the actual instruments as well. So a lot of the bad habits that Glenn has picked up over the last few years, or I don't know, number of years, um, are still there. They're still present. Um, a lot of reviewers have said there's some off-key moments, and I'm trying to listen for them. But the thing is I'm not familiar with many of these songs as far as Elvis goes, so I'm not sure of what. I mean, I've heard a couple, 4 or 5 of them over the years, but something about this album resonates with me more than a lot of his recent career moves or albums, and I can't really explain it that well. That in I really have to think about this, but I think it's just because that there is more of a passion here than there is with some of his modern metal stuff. And this is kind of where I was thinking, like, after that last album, studio album came out, I'm like, maybe you should take a step back from metal for a while, because some of these metal songs just, there's something just not right with the modern Danzig sound as far as the metal thing goes. I didn't like the Danzig, what is it called? The thing where he was trying to do the that pay-per-view thing that he did with, trying to do like the Danzig '68 Elvis thing with the special, the TV special or whatever. I forgot what that was called. God, I'm gonna look it up. Um, just a second here. I'm trying to remember the name of that thing, because I watched part of that. Legacy. That's right, the Legacy special. I I watched part of that, and I was like, it wasn't put together as well as it could have been. And I think Tommy Victor is a good guitarist. Don't get me wrong, but that whole unplugged part of it, just, oh man, I didn't like that, and I thought that could have been handled a lot better. So part of the problem is Danzig just doesn't do, he just does everything himself. He tries to take on everything. There's another person, Inve Malmsteen, that tries to do this nowadays too, and they just both kind of remind me of each other. They're both virtuosos at their respective instruments and stuff like that, but they both try to bite off more than they can chew, or just don't have any kind of sense of like perspective sometimes. So that's kind of what the core of my Danzig is Done video was about. But in this case, there's a little bit more passion and panache, with this. And the thing is, oh, there's a Veronica insert for the movie, which I watched. I was like, okay, so I'm better. I'm not going to talk about that movie. Just, it speaks for itself. I'm not going to say much about that. There's already, a lot of stuff said about that movie. But with this album, I see, crawling back up, to a level of passion and forethought that went into this album, more so than his last studio album, and more so than the Skeletons cover album. More along the lines of, God, what is that out? God, I can't remember all these weird mystical, esoteric names that Danzig gives his albums, modern albums. I know 777, Luciferi, and 666. Black Laden Crown is the last one. Okay, what was that one before? Death Red Sabbath or whatever. So it's kind of more up to that level of standards of singing than the last two releases that he's done. Now, like I said, I did like those. Like I said in a previous video, I did like those covers of those like biker horror exploitation theme songs that he did. I thought that was really cool, and that was the highlight of the Skeletons album too, with some of those songs. So otherwise, I thought it was pretty bad. The ZZ Top song "Rough Boy" being the worst thing I've ever heard him do, honestly. So, to me, that was the bottom. And then the next album was a step up, and then this album is a step up from that. And I think he could very well make a comeback, quote unquote, pun intended, because the 68 comeback special is what the Legacy thing was trying to do, Elvis. But this Elvis album features a bunch of songs that are a little bit more obscure, like One Night, Lonely Blue Boy, Baby Let's Play House. A lot of them are soundtrack songs from like 60s movies that Elvis did, or some kind of underrated songs. And I thought he did a good job to some extent on them. Now, it's certainly not on the level of 90s Danzig or something like that, or, where he's crooning and wailing his his head off as far as vocals go. It's very subdued and low key, and I think that's probably where people get the wrong impression of this album, and probably don't understand it in the way that maybe he was meant to, what he was doing. He's doing this kind of mellow, like, I don't know, it's like a stripped down, it's almost like, when Johnny Cash did those albums with Rick Rubin in a certain way. Like, it's just this, it's his voice, and this low-key instrumentation and background. It's almost like some of these like softer moments on the albums too, like the Sistinas, or some of these songs that have him just kind of, he's crooning over this very bare instrumentation. It's kind of dark. It makes it, there's a darkness and there's a bareness to it that I like. It's almost like like on those old Joy Division albums where there's just like, there's maybe just some weird noise in the background, and then Ian Curtis, and then some like synth or something. It has this darkness to it, which I kind of like, and this starkness to it. Now, I don't like Tommy Victor in Danzig, and I never have, and I've voiced that before, because I just don't think his style and his tone really fit the band. And I like Prawn, but the band he's in. But I always thought he could do a better, have a better guitarist. And some of the guitars on here, they're okay, it's not bad. And then Glenn plays guitar as well. But overall, I enjoyed it. I was surprised, actually. I was quite surprised by it. I haven't liked a Danzig release since Lost Tracks, which was back in 2006. Because Lost Tracks, Danzig, the mysteriously weird thing about that is that when Danzig picks songs for his actual albums and leaves songs on the side, unreleased, I think he sometimes doesn't have the best taste in picking his own songs for the albums. So that's why you have Lost Tracks of Danzig has songs like Crawl Across Your Killing Floor and Bound by Blood, which just have this like old school Danzig feel, even for latter day Danzig. So I like Danzig Sings Elvis. I'd give it 3, maybe 3.5 stars. I wouldn't give it 4 or 5, like the old Rolling Stone rating system. That's what I would be going by. Maybe 3.5. I thought it was surprisingly good. I just like the atmosphere of it. It has an atmosphere. It's not clipping in your face like a lot of modern metal. It's not fucking quantized, but it works in that context. It doesn't work for other covers that he's done, like on Skeletons. It just, this thing, and it sounds like this thing he has the passion for this album. Maybe he's not singing at his best, but he has the passion. It sounds a lot better. And like I said, it's the best thing he's released, in my opinion. Humble 30-year Danzig fan opinion. Best thing he's released since Lost Tracks of Danzig. Even though that's not really a release and more of a compilation of unreleased music, but I really liked that. And I thought Lost Tracks of Danzig was the best thing he's released since Danzig 3 or 4. So that kind of puts this thing in perspective. Now, I think he should do his blues album that he's been planning on for years with Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. That would be really interesting, and get a real producer on that. Maybe one of the stipulations Jerry Cantrell could have is like, let's get a real person to like listen and mix it, and not have Glenn do everything, because Glenn's duet with Melissa Off-Dumar or whatever, the bass player of Hole. The song escapes my name. You can find it on YouTube. That was if Danzig actually recorded with a real producer nowadays. That's what it would sound like, and it was damn good. So, I think it's My Father's Keeper or something like that. So, if Danzig had a real producer, a lot of these problems would be avoided. Or if he just like kind of had a little more introspection, looked at his own, listened to his own stuff, is like, no, that's not, like was a little more self-critical about his own production, like, oh, that's not good enough, blah blah blah. But overall, this works. This album works for me, other than the vocals being too loud. Somehow it works, and I'll listen. I'm actually going to listen to it again. I just think it's kind of neat, hearing him cover these songs. His voice is not 100%, but it's improved from the last 2 releases he's done, and certainly improved from like 1995, or if it was 95 or 96, Black Acid Devil, and some of those other albums. While some of the songs and production are a little bit decent or somewhat decent, some of his voice does sound hoarse on those. And this one, it sounds like he's playing it safe with his voice. He doesn't go too crazy, and that kind of works in this low-key setting and this low-key vibe that he gives. This kind of dark, like, it's almost like a film noir, Danzig. Like, you go to this old bar, it's not, I know film noir is from the 40s and not the 50s, but like, let's say you just went to this dingy bar and you saw this guy singing these old songs, this older guy in this dark, like, sinister bar at the bad side of town and all stuff. It gives that kind of atmosphere and vibe, and I kind of like that. So overall, I like this album, and I was surprised. It doesn't clear up my conscience of the Danzig is done video I did years back, but it just means that I'm going to judge things on their own merits, and I'm judging this on its own merits. I saw some really, I wouldn't say unfair reviews of it, but I saw some people that were not so favorable of it, on YouTube, and they have their right to their own opinion. I'm not going to go spam their comments and say you're so wrong, you're not a true fan of Danzig. That's bullshit. But so, by my own ears and my own critical, subjective point of view. Sorry, I kind of like this. I mean, I wouldn't say I love it, but I kind of like it, and I thought it was. I think if Danzig continues in this direction of this more mellow, older Danzig, he actually may succeed better at that than doing metal, full on metal. At least for a while. Maybe he has to I don't know. Because the Misfits shows were pretty good. I saw some footage, and they sounded pretty damn good. So he could probably do the more aggressive stuff. He just needs to, take a step back, I think. The songwriting on his last album, I just didn't think was up to par with his old material. And I thought that about the previous album as well. Well, it's like I said, I think there's a possibility some of the unreleased songs are better than what are on the album some of the time, just like with Lost Tracks. Like, he talked about this one ballad that he was doing with all this old equipment and stuff, and it was never released on the last 2 albums, so I would like to hear that, So, all in all, I think he's on the right track with this album. It's not there where it should be, right? It's not at the classic Danzig thing, but like I said, the low key, it's mainly the mix is the bad part, in my opinion. But the low-key Danzig, where he's just kind of like a, I wouldn't say lounge singer, but just like this old, you get this old image of this old bar, you know, in the old bad side of town. It's like an old jazz bar, you know, he's singing these old Elvis songs on stage. There's like these occult symbols in the bathroom and all this shit. You just get this like image in your head when you're listening to this album. And that hasn't happened in a long time with Danzig. Another thing I liked from Danzig recently was the soundtrack to Veronica, not the song, like the metal songs, but like the actual orchestration and stuff that Glenn did. I think he should release that separately because that is actually really damn good. So those two things are the best thing he's done since Lost Tracks. But I think he needs to go forward with like the blues album and doing these other projects because, and I'm not going to comment about his movies. You know, he's only done a couple movies now. That's yet to be determined. A lot of people's first, you know, these could be like his version of student films. You know, you watch Brian De Palma's first student film, and it's not the greatest fucking thing since sliced bread, you know. So maybe that's like one of these movies. He's a rock star, has a little bit of a budget more compared to like someone like Brian De Palma or Steven Spielberg's first movie. I mean, there's some cool concepts in Veronica, but not a good film. Sorry. Not sorry. So, anyways, I think people may misunderstand the Danzig sings Elvis thing. They're expecting some like Brian Setzer kind of like up, like some kind of Brian Setzer like really upward sounding like upbeat. That's the word I was looking for. Upbeat sounding like 50s kind of tribute thing, but it's not. That didn't happen, and that's not what this is about. And that's why I like it, though. Because he could have done some fucking cliched, like, horrorbilly cover album of Elvis, you know, or whatever. You know, it could have been like that. But this is better. In a way, it's better and more Danzig-like to do it the way he did. Other than that damn mix. Awful mix. Like, just because the voice, you just turn down your voice a little bit. Other than that, it's good. Okay? I'm not trying to win over people that didn't like my Danzig is Done video, by the way. I was surprised. I was shocked. I was expecting to not like this. And this is a late review because I got this about 4 months ago or whatever, but I just wanted to put that out there because this is the first time listening to it. I have a bunch of albums I haven't listened to because I've been, busy with other crap. And this is just kind of catching up with that. But I was quite surprised. I opened this up today out of the plastic. So, but overall, if you are a fan of Elvis and Danzig, but also don't mind like a really low key kind of something to sip some wine to on a cold rainy night, or on a winter night with some cold rain, you can listen to this album. It's not bad. That's all I got to say.